Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in. Today, we are neutrally unpacking a highly charged, totally viral broadcast from Blaze TV that centers around some really intense claims regarding newly released intelligence documents. Now, whether you've watched this broadcast yourself or you're just hearing about it for the very first time, our goal today is to step back from all that political heat. We're going to examine exactly what the source is claiming, how they build their argument, and what these alleged documents actually entail. Okay, let's dive into this. The broadcaster kicks things off with an incredibly dramatic premise. Quote, "She walked out that door and she dropped a bomb." This really sets the stage for the core claim of the entire broadcast, that on her final day as Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard didn't just, quietly clear out her desk. Instead, according to the source, she declassified and released explosive, paradigm-shifting documents that completely challenge years of official narratives. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to systematically break down the commentators' arguments into 5 distinct themes. 1, the broadcast claims. 2, allegations of global biolabs. 3, COVID-19 origin documents. 4, intelligence community under pressure. And finally, 5, the call to action. Let's get to it.
Section 1, the broadcast's claims. The entire argument really rests on the alleged release of 2 very distinct sets of intelligence documents. The commentator argues that these 2 sets of papers were strategically released back-to-back by the outgoing Director of National Intelligence to expose deep, systemic cover-ups. The broadcast is claiming that these aren't just isolated, everyday memos, but rather primary source evidence proving that top officials knowingly misled the public on some massive global health and security issues. Moving on to Section 2, allegations of global biolabs. According to the source, the first bombshell dropped by Gabbard revealed this pretty staggering number, 120. The broadcast claims that the declassified intelligence proves the United States government has been quietly funding and operating more than 120 biological laboratories all around the world. And the commentator argues this specific release was timed first for a reason. It's meant to show the audience that the issue is systemic and global, rather than just an isolated incident. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the claim, because those 120 biolabs are allegedly spread across more than 30 different countries. The broadcaster highlights that these facilities are located in areas around the world that include active conflict zones, and they explicitly point to Ukraine as a prime example of this. The source asks this huge rhetorical question: why on earth would the government maintain such sensitive facilities in a country that is currently at war? The overarching argument the commentator is making here is that the U.S. has built a worldwide network of dual-use research labs, handling the most dangerous pathogens on Earth, and they are often situated in places with incredibly shaky oversight or political instability. And what's really fascinating about this rhetorical strategy is how it primes the audience. By establishing this massive, precarious global ecosystem right off the bat, the commentator deliberately spikes anxiety and lays some really heavy groundwork for the next set of claims. It paints the whole situation as a disaster just waiting to happen. Which brings us to Section 3, COVID-19 origin documents. Now, to really understand the COVID-19 claims, we've got to look at exactly how the source defines this specific term, gain-of-function work. The broadcast describes it as risky research combining parts of deadly pathogens to see if they can infect human cells. The commentator alleges that these new documents definitively prove American taxpayer dollars were funneled through the EcoHealth Alliance to fund this exact type of research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab well before the outbreak ever happened. From there, the broadcast builds this really fast-moving timeline based on these alleged declassified documents. In 2018, State Department cables reportedly warn of dangerously inadequate safety protocols. By late 2019, documents allegedly show early panic and chaos happening in China. Then, the timeline kind of slows down as the alleged cover-up begins. In May 2020, an assessment from the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory reportedly concluded a lab leak of a modified virus was absolutely a legitimate possibility. And finally, by June 2021, top officials were allegedly sitting in on secure briefings discussing researchers who had already fallen sick at the Wuhan lab. So, the crucial point is the stark contrast the broadcast draws here. On one side, you have the public stance. The commentator points a finger directly at figures like Dr. Anthony Fauci, claiming they looked the American people in the eye, said none of this risky research was happening, and completely dismissed the lab leak theory as a dangerous conspiracy. But on the flip side, you have what the commentator claims is the absolute proof, the actual declassified documents showing early intelligence briefings and funding trails that directly contradict those public denials. This perceived betrayal leads the commentator to make some incredibly severe accusations. The broadcast features this highly emotive quote, "He lied and millions died. This is one of the worst crimes against humanity." Now, maintaining our objective lens, it is really important to note the sheer intensity of the source material here. The commentator genuinely believes these documents represent a cover-up of historic proportions. They even go so far as to suggest that those involved should face trials and the death penalty for the resulting global devastation. Section 4. Intelligence Community Under Pressure. So, how could something of this magnitude allegedly be kept quiet? Well, the broadcast points straight to the internal culture of the intelligence community during this whole period. The commentator claims that the newly released documents reveal a highly toxic internal environment. Allegedly, analysts who leaned toward the lab leak hypothesis faced extreme pressure, literally getting threats that their careers would be ruined if they didn't fall in line with the preferred natural origin narrative. Whistleblowers were reportedly marginalized or completely silenced. The broadcast argues that the entire intelligence and scientific system basically went into protection mode. They were burying internal assessments, not to protect the public, but to protect their own funding, their reputations, and their institutional narratives through layers and layers of gaslighting. And finally, Section 5, the call to action. After laying out all these explosive claims, the broadcaster tells the audience exactly what they need to do next. The commentator is highly distrustful of institutions, to the point where he tells his viewers not to even trust his own summary, and definitely do not trust the legacy media. Instead, he issues these 3 very specific steps. First, go directly to the Director of National Intelligence Government website. Second, read the primary source documents for yourself. And third, and this is crucial for him, he urges viewers to physically print and save the files, because he fears that a new administration or establishment figures might soon scrub all the evidence from the internet. But it doesn't stop with just saving documents. The broadcast outlines some much broader societal advice. The commentator pushes for viewers to demand a full, unredacted accounting of all research funds and an immediate end to gain-of-function research. He also pushes really hard for personal independence, urging his audience to build personal resilience, grow their own food, and teach their children critical thinking. He frames all of this as a heavy moral imperative to choose courage over cynicism, essentially telling people to refuse to live by lies, even if the powerful people responsible never actually face accountability. As we step back from the really intense claims of this Blaze TV broadcast, it leaves us with a critical, ongoing question to think about. How do primary document releases and the independent media platforms that amplify them continue to shape public trust in our legacy institutions? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions about the sources you consume, keep examining the structure of the arguments being presented to you, and we'll catch you next time.